I am Bonnie Krebs from Art Impressions, and I am here at Scrapbook.com with more new releases from our watercolor line. You're going to love these new sets. Those of you who are familiar with this technique, you're going to have more things to add to your collection. And of course, everything you have is going to work with everything new. And those of you new to this technique, keep watching because I'm going to show you how to create little watercolor paintings that only take a few minutes. And honestly, you can do it, I promise. I'm going to show you how. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start out with this little garden shed set, and I'm going to show you how to put this set together. We're going to need just a few things. So we're going to need the little garden shed set, and you can see it comes with 4, and these are actually pretty good size stamps, so they're really, really fun to do. You can change them up into different environments. They're super fun. We're also going to use items from our new Foliage Set 4, so I love this set too. These 2 little vines here, we're going to use those, and these 2 little accent grasses. I'm going to show you how to put those together. And then in our foliage set, our original foliage set, the little grasses, and then in our flower set, the little filler flower. Okay, so let's get going. So I'm going to start out by inking the basic image, and the basic image will be the garden shed. So we're going to ink that in 2 colors. We're going to start out with the sepia color. This is kind of a dark brown, and I'm just going to ink this whole thing up with my marker, and I'm using the side of the marker to make sure I get really good coverage. I'm going to come back over it again with the dark blue. So this is a cool blue, a dark navy blue, and we're just going to go over that whole thing again. And now I'm going to stamp that into the center of my watercolor paper. And you want really good, even pressure. Don't just mash that stamp into your paper. If the lines are too thick, you're going to have too much color. And if the lines are too thin, you're not going to have enough. So good, even, solid pressure so that you don't have too dark of an image. So now we're going to do the next step. And this is always the way to start these little projects. Stamp that basic image and then add water to the lines. So I'm going to dip my brush in water and then pinch it off, and you can see how flat it is. I've pinched off the majority of the water, and now we're going to change this little flat outline into a 3-dimensional image, and this is where the fun starts. This is so much fun because you can see how these things change so much just with this first step. And just kind of follow the lines. This is where the color comes from, so just drag your brush along. Make sure you don't have too much water. If you notice that your lines are getting too thick or you're losing your lines, you just have too much water on your brush. So go back and just pinch it off and make sure that your brush is really pretty dry. And you can see how this is changing already. It's becoming more like a 3-dimensional picture, and that's because we started with these 2 colors. So it's really, really important to start with that earthy color, like that brown, to kind of cement your image down. We don't want to stamp this with a color. So for example, we want this little shed to be blue. We don't want to stamp it in blue. We have to stamp it in an earthy color that kind of cements it down and grounds it and makes it look like an actual object. So really, really important. Okay, so let's go ahead and add something around it. So we're going to take our little vines. This is from Foliage Set 4, and it's a right and a left. So you can use these this way and this way. So let's start out with the one facing to the left. And I'm just going to ink that in the green. And I'm just going to stamp it around this little post. And I can turn my little shed and grow some of it off the side of my roof. And maybe I'll put a few more on here. And then I can take my other one and just put a little bit here. Don't be afraid to turn your paper, you know, so that you get a good impression. And it makes it just a little bit easier to use. So now I've got that stamped in. So now the next step is to add water. So as soon as we stamp, we add water. And just touch it, just dab. Just dab. Dip your brush, pinch it off, always the same. Always do that the same. And then just dab at the image. I'm going to add some color now into the background, and I'm going to do that from my palette. So I'm just going to use a light blue. And I'm just going to get a little color so you can see I pinched my brush off again. And I'm just going to add some blue into the background. And it's okay to kind of blend this into the green. That's okay. Just the idea that we've got some sky in the background. So let's go on to the next step, and we're going to add some flowers now into this little composition. We want these wildflowers growing over the top of this little garden shed. We want it to look like it's kind of out in a field and a little overgrown. And you can see this little filler stamps. It's got 5 blooms on it, but most of the time we don't need to ink the whole thing, especially something that's back in the distance. We just need a couple. So let's just ink 2 and add some color in here. And you're stamping this over and over again, just like we did with the vines, over and over again. And then again, dip your brush, pinch it off, and then soften the lines. So jump it around. Leave those white spaces. Don't fill it all in solid. Leave some white spaces. So let's come back now and take some of that blue and add some color now to this little shed. And start out light. Just go very light. You can always go back in and add more color. And then in here, under this little overhang, it's going to be darker. I'm going to add a little darker blue now to it and add some color back in here. So as this goes back into the background, we're going to get a little darker color in here. So let's add some color now to the roof. We're going to go back to this dark brown, dip our brush, always dip your brush, and then add some color now to the roof. The other thing is to always stay in each section. So you notice when I add the color to this door, I'm doing each little section by itself. So I don't ever want to run my brush over the top of all of these lines. That's really, really important. I'm just going to take the fine tip now of my marker and just make sure I've got that little door handle in here. And let's go on to our little grasses in the front. So I'm just going to take the tiny little grass now and just kind of work my way across the front. And see, I'm stamping this over and over again too. So stamp it over and over again and then add water. Pull that color up and out. Just drag that color up and out. Do one last step here, and that's to add this little accent grass. And what I love about these is that they can stamp over the top of the line. So you don't have to worry if you've got a lot of color or a lot of lines here. You can stamp that right over the top. And it kind of gives that impression that this is just out in a field somewhere. Love it. And that looks pretty good to me. I think we are about finished with this. So one last thing, sign and date. And then let's put that on a card base. Okay, so I have die cut my little watercolor painting now using our new die set. This is our tag die set, and you can see it has double stitch lines. So we've got a really nice decorative edge on here. I think that really adds a lot to it. So I'm just going to put it on a simple card base. And these little paintings, you know, they don't need to have a lot. Just a simple little card base actually works really well, because they kind of stand alone on, they kind of stand on their own. And I'll just glue it onto my card base. And it is ready to give away to someone. They're gonna love it. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more from Scrapbook.com, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a message. Happiness is life handmade.